if she so choose. Thank you. Tonight we'll have a public hearing regarding the water quality program rate study. And at this time, I will turn this portion over to Councilwoman Burrs to lead us. Oh, can I get approval of the minutes? Thank you. All four? Okay, any nays? See what you did, man? That 2 minutes messed me up. All right, Councilwoman, thank you.
Good evening. Tonight we're having a public hearing on water quality fees, and it's my pleasure to lead that hearing. Each person will have 3 minutes to speak, and you want to go ahead and read the other rules very quickly? And
basically this hearing will be for water quality only. There will be another section at the end of the agenda if you have to speak to the council on agenda items. As the councilwoman says, as the chairwoman said, you have 3 minutes unless the council provides for additional time. You can only address, again, items on water quality. You can't personally attack or personally denigrate others, nor can you use any obscene or vulgar language.
yeah, especially stay away from the obscene or vulgar language. So if you would, we want to hear what you have to say. So if you would come to the podium, if you would identify yourself, your address, and the district you live in, we want to hear what each one of you has to say, and each one of you will have time to speak. No longer than 3 minutes unless the council gives more time. So who would like to speak? Sure, you don't have to raise your hand, just join us.
Thank you. Is this on?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. My name is Richard Beeland, 502 Sylvan Street, District 2, and I'm here representing the Home Builders Association. Thank you for the opportunity to comment on the water quality rate study and the recommended rate and fee increases for homeowners. The Home Builders Association of Greater Chattanooga was established in 1945 and is comprised of builders, developers, and professionals from associated industries throughout the region. We advocate for housing that is affordable, of the highest quality or highest possible value, environmentally responsible, and built with the highest standards of quality. For over a year now, Public Works staff has had the opportunity to work with consultants to develop this cost of service analysis-based rate study. The rate increase study was released to the public just a few weeks ago. We believe that property owners deserve a comprehensive and accountable review process prior to any increase being implemented. Single-family home construction annually accounts for an estimated $192.2 million contributed to the local economy, $26.5 million in taxes and other revenue for local governments, and provides approximately 2,800 jobs. As an industry stakeholder, we have not had an opportunity to thoroughly review the study and make an informed decision about how this will impact the home building industry and, more importantly, home affordability and home ownership in our community. We understand and respect the need for regulations. However, we also believe this increased cost to homeowners will unfairly and disproportionately affect low to moderate and fixed income homeowners the most. Home affordability is already out of reach for many individuals and families in our community. The very individuals and families that need to see increased access to home affordability and home ownership will be undeservedly impacted the most. As an industry, we're always concerned when a governmental regulating authority proposes to increase rates and fees on all homeowners and home buyers. We respectfully request that this water quality rate and fee increase proposal be removed from the overall City of Chattanooga FY19 budget and be debated and voted on independently. Homeowners and home buyers stand to be the most impacted by these proposed rate and fee increases, and this subject deserves a high level of consideration that can only be achieved by analyzing it as an independent issue. Additionally, we urge you to make sure that all proposed water quality projects that utilize the funds generated from these increases are properly vetted and legally required by the relevant regulatory agencies. Removing this increase now from the FY19 city budget will allow time for council to ask questions and gather input, an important responsibility that belongs to this council as a function of government. Thank you for the opportunity to address this matter. As an organization supporting the local home building industry, we're very concerned and respectfully request council to devote more time and attention to this matter before voting to impose these rate and fee increases on the citizens of Chattanooga. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else that would like to speak?
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm Sandy Kurtz, and I come before you once again representing South Chickamauga Creek Greenway Alliance to request your attention to the stormwater issue and water quality. We are a citizens advocacy group protecting the South Chickamauga Creek watershed. We would like you to hold off on any increase in employees and an increase in water quality fees for this new budget until there has been a proper review with proper public input. As you have heard before, the work was all done behind closed doors without public input. Only after all the plans were put down on paper to the liking of staff was there any news of it for the public. If one asks, is the water cleaner? You have to say no, since every one of our streams is still on the state list of threatened and impaired streams. However, we actually haven't tested, so we don't know if it's been improved or not. Presently, the water's only tested every 5 years. I remind you that if you drink city water, the majority of it comes from the South Chickamauga Creek watershed. A few other questions I came up with about the wisdom of increasing the budget in the water quality area. Number one, what are the methods being used for assessing the success of any programs? How are they evaluated? We don't know. Presently, the water quality folks have 150 employees with a request to increase them to 170. What are these 150 folks doing? I was told there was 100% doing water quality work, but we found some folks filling potholes that said they were working for the water quality division. That's a stretch. What will these extra 20 employees be doing, and what water quality improvements can we expect? Are we collecting the water quality fees now? Is there follow-up for delinquent accounts? We are concerned about the rate structure additionally. The new rate structure analysis didn't really assess that because it's still the same. We should have a tiered set of fees for residential rather than everyone in the same box, because some homes are much larger than the smallest of homes. We stand ready to assist in a review that we hope will be coming up before any increase in budget is entertained. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else?
Hello, I'm Jeff Ramsey, President of Greater Chattanooga Realtors. I'd like to thank you all for the opportunity to step up here and share our concerns about the stormwater and land development fees in Chattanooga. We've provided you with our statement in its entirety, and I'm just going to hit some bullet points. I'd like to ask the realtors that are in the room currently to stand up. Thank you. Thank you.
Sir, let me interrupt you. Where do you live?
Oh,
What
well,
district are you in, please?
I actually live in the county, but I represent 2,100 realtors in Chattanooga, so I'm representing all districts because we've got
Thank you.
realtors in all districts. Thank you. I apologize for that. Last year, when changes to the stormwater ordinance were made, we discussed the importance of cooperation between the stakeholders and the city. Our goal was to ensure that Chattanooga's rapid growth results in positive impact on the city. Unfortunately, we were not asked to provide input regarding this issue that affects developers, current and future home buyers, business owners in the city of Chattanooga. How the city handled the proposed fee increase has left the realtors with more questions than answers, such as does the city want affordable development and housing in Chattanooga? Does the city concerned that the consumers will be negatively impacted by the proposed fee increases? Stakeholders were only provided the fee increase information 3 days before the first meeting of the Stormwater Board, who made their decision 10 days later. This rushed timeline leads the realtors to believe that the stakeholders' opinions were either an afterthought or a formality, and that the fee increase was a done deal, regardless of any comments or concerns out of the stakeholders. Our belief is based on our knowledge that the study provided the opinion to hold residential and business focus groups, yet none were held to our knowledge. Prior to the public meeting and approval of the Stormwater Board, the city already incorporated the proposed fee increase into the 2019 budget. We understand fees have not increased in quite some time, and fees may be necessary moving forward, but why the leap all at once? We cannot support such a drastic fee increase without proper due diligence. The stakeholders were deprived of the opportunity, and the city has not had ample time to do its due diligence. We are extremely concerned about the impact on development in Chattanooga. We are concerned about the impact on its citizens. The city continues to say that the development community will be assessed, will be assessed in the increased development fees, but they will trickle down to your constituents. It's going to trickle down to the home buyers, the business owners. The Greater Chattanooga Realtors believe everyone should have an opportunity for home ownership. As home prices continue to rise in the city of Chattanooga, the dream of home ownership will continue to dim for many citizens. I see I've got 8 seconds left and I've got more to go, but you do have our full written statement. So thank you for the
Do
opportunity.
you want any closing statement? You okay?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much for your input. And Ms. Kurtz, your address and okay, and what district? Thank you. That's okay. Does anyone else wish to speak? Is that it? So folks, I'm sure that many of you are here about this. If you wish to speak, please come on up so that we can hear from everyone. Thank you.
Good evening. How you doing? My name's Chris Long. I'm a CEO for CDEC, which stands for Chattanooga Developers Environmental Coalition. I've devised this NGO in order to incorporate the development community and the environmentalists working together as one industry, so we can streamline this, make this a lot more functional. And a lot of things that I would like to target on is, what I want to do is, if we can push this back, it will give us an opportunity to be able to address this to the people in the stormwater department. We're not opposed to it, but we're not for it. We just need to analyze a little bit more. The concerns that I have personally with our group is, where does it end? We've been under these rules and regulations since 1991, and that was only supposed to be for 20 years. We've already went over that threshold, and yet it seems like there's no end to this. I would like to get the proper engineers, a group together, to come up with some kind of target date where we'll have a goal with this, because there got to be an end to it, because right now there's no end to it. It just keeps going and going, and it's getting into a bureaucracy, and we all know what it's like to unwind something like that. So I would like to get ahead of it while we can. Now we want to do things a little bit more efficiently, because we can work with the environmentalists and the developers, and trust me, they work really well together. That's never been really done before. And we can come up with some more creative, new ideas to set the frontier and save the taxpayers' dollars and take a lot of pressure off you guys that have to make this hard decision. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak?
Good evening. I've addressed this council before. My name is Pete Yakimovich. I live at 2689 Churchill Downs Circle. I'm in District 6, Carol Burrs' district. And thank you again for the invitation to speak. I guess just a little background. I was there when this whole program first got started back in '91. So I've seen it evolve, and it has, and it's gone pretty much in the right direction, the kinds of things that need to be done. But at this stage, being an engineer, even though a recovering one, I would like to find a solution for this, because obviously we're at a crossroads in terms of how to implement not only the balance of the program, which staff has well outlined to you in terms of what they've got to do in meeting it, but also in terms of how we look at the fee structure as well. Essentially, the way I see it, of course, I wasn't a party to the actual development of this thing, but typically you can look at the actual rate structure and find a way to rebalance things so that they more closely approximate what the impact is on water quality, and at the same time, in doing so, find a more equitable balance point for those smaller homes that you all spoke about. I would just remind this council that when this thing first started back in '93, that we had a two-tier structure on residential. And that was done also with a statistical analysis that showed that the smaller homes were grouped in a certain size range, and the larger homes are grouped in a different larger size range, and that there was differences in terms of the impervious area in those properties and their impact. So that suggests that maybe we ought to take another look at that in the rate structure, and there are other modifying factors in the rate structure that could rebalance this thing. So I guess besides what some of the other speakers already said about public input and so forth, and looking at the process again, I say all these things not as a critic of what the city has done, but just saying that there can be some other ways to solve this thing, and that I would encourage this council to set up a review board composed of people who understand something about this, and perhaps working with the Stormwater Board or working with staff, and come up with some solutions that would balance this thing to where it's, quote, more equitable. So that's about it for my comments. Oh, one other thing. I guess I might have a few more seconds. Capital projects for stormwater has always been difficult. Typically, with these stormwater fees, you can cover regulation, enforcement, operations, and maintenance, but capital projects are expensive. It only takes one capital project of significant size to basically absorb the entire budget. So it would be appropriate to also augment this budget with general fund money that's done elsewhere. Okay, I'm done.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else? Yes, ma'am. You sure do. You want to? Ma'am, did you say stormwater? Oh, okay. You are in the right place, but you can speak at the end of the meeting. This is, yes, ma'am. Well, go ahead and hand your, yeah, go ahead and hand it out. Nah. Sure. You're doing fine. Thank you so much for coming. Look forward to what you have to say in just a few minutes.
This is a letter we received from Mayor Burke's office.
Okay.
Oh, you want me to wait?
Wait till the end. This is about a
Oh,
specific
okay, I'm sorry,
topic.
I misunderstood. I'll be
Yeah.
glad to wait.
Yeah, it won't be long, and then we'd love to hear from you. And actually, you'll have a little more time at the end. Okay. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak?
Hello, my name is Dave Hamill. I live in Missionary Ridge, and I'm in Demetrius Coonrod's District 9, I guess is where it is. I've spoken to this body before about stormwater issues, but and the fact that you today have this only for stormwater indicates that you consider this a pretty important feature of what's maybe or maybe not happening in the city, and I appreciate that because it deserves its own special place. Like several of the other presenters, I agree that this was handled way too fast. It was cooked up in the back room and delivered to people that cared about it 2 or 3 days before the Stormwater Board, and then 3 days later there was another meeting and it was approved. So the fact that you're trying to slow this down, put some brakes on, thank you very much. We are supposed to be following the Washington, D.C. model. I'm a member of the Associated General Contractors Environmental Steering Committee and have for the last 4 years, this will be the 5th year, gone to Washington, D.C. to speak with representatives of the EPA about stormwater issues, quite frankly. That's how interested I am in it. I even had the privilege of introducing Washington, D.C. stormwater manager who made a presentation to our group about how they handle their fees. And I asked as an audience member at that point, did they get fees from their governments, from the federal government? You know, a lot of Washington, D.C. is the impervious areas, federal buildings, and absolutely, they collect money from the private sector and from the public sector. And Pete alluded, and Sandy alluded to the monies that have been billed and not collected to the tune of about $8 million a year to the city, county, federal government, and you're not collecting it. And you should. If the stormwater department needs $40 million extra dollars, go collect that money. You might have your best luck at the federal level because they will pay. These are kind of out of their these are kind of requirements out of their gut. Having said that, you might also consider widening the scope. If impervious area is in fact what is being taxed, we've got lots of roads in this town. About 20% of all impervious areas, 20 to 30% is roadways. So who drives on roadways? Drivers. So, I made this suggestion 5 or 6 years ago when this was going on, but there should be, in my opinion, a stormwater tax every time you renew your license. 10 bucks, 15 bucks, 20 bucks. There's 1,000 and thousands and thousands of those people. And right now, if you tell me I can go ahead, I'll go ahead. If not, I'll sit down.
Counsel, go ahead, sir.
Okay. So that is a significant source of revenue that could be generated to go into the stormwater fee. And it is, and it could actually lessen the property tax. Right now, you know, we have the highest, one of the highest stormwater fees for property in the United States. It's right now 3 or 4 times what Nashville is. There's not very many cities that have anywhere near what we've got. Also, as Pete mentioned, capital projects are a big deal. I learned the other day from a presentation by Bill Payne at the stormwater meeting that the big dig on South Broad Street was funded apparently out of stormwater fees or water quality fees. I would ask, what does putting a culvert in the ground have to do with water quality? There has been no representation of the improvement in any stream in the Chattanooga area in the last 5 years when over $100 million has been purportedly spent to make the water better. I don't think we're making the water better, and as a group, we're saying if we're gonna spend this huge amount of money, let's make the water better, and we're not getting there. So I've shared with you several ideas, one about how to raise additional monies and how the monies could be spent in a fashion that will meet the objective of the fund, which is water quality fee. If you want to change it to an MS4 fee, then maybe you get the right to do anything, but it's not water quality at that point. So we have several breakdowns from that, but you have heard my major suggestions, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak?
Good evening. My name is
Good
Jason
evening.
Brown, and although I don't live in Chattanooga, I'm here representing SEIU Local 205, which is the City of Chattanooga Workers Union. We represent those non-commissioned and non-commissioned fire and police in the city. My statement will be focused and short. I simply ask that this body, that you've done your due diligence and that you've ensured that any increases in costs that naturally will impact our members, the people that live here in the city, people that work for the city, that those are necessary to further the City of Chattanooga's vision for affordable living and just living in general. As we all know, any increases to utilities come directly out of the pockets of increases in pay, and they go right along with the other increases that come naturally. So I'd just like to make sure that it's not being viewed as just the natural order of things to increase a rate, but rather that it's something that you've viewed as necessary for the improvement of the City of Chattanooga. And I appreciate you giving me the time to speak.
Thank you. Is there anyone else?
Hi. I've been up here in a while. My problem about the stormwater fee is, everything's going to just what he said.
You need to say who you are, even though I know you, your
I'm
address,
sorry.
and what
My name is
district.
Stephen West. I live at 5280 Rotary Drive, Chattanooga, Tennessee. Okay. I live in 5280 Rotary Drive, Chattanooga, Tennessee. But my problem is with the stormwater fee is, our insurance went up, everything's going up. But thing about it is, they said this budget and all that, and I know we're talking about the budget, and I understand that. But when our insurance go up, we're not making the raise. We're not getting a raise. But y'all talking about raising our stormwater fees. I'm barely paying stormwater fees for now. Just finally got them caught up from my mother died 5 years ago. So, I'm just saying, this stormwater fee is not going to help. If we stop all these contracts that y'all vote on, start looking at contracts a whole lot closer, because if we hire the people, we get the job done. That money stays here. Then so stormwater fees ain't got to go up. The money staying in the city. So, it's a lot of things that I think that this city can do to cut out all of this wasteful spending that I say is wasteful spending, and just me. Because just out there where I work at, y'all get $80,000 to these people. And half the time they're not there. So, I have problems with that. Because if I stay out of work, I don't get paid. But they go and do another job somewhere else and takes everything with them, and then they're not there. Because like about 2 weeks ago, they was gone for about 2 weeks. They was gone because they had another big job they had to do. So, that's a problem. So, as a council, I'm asking y'all, start looking at these contracts, because it seems like everything comes in, they want to contract it out. Why? That should be a big problem. Why is everything getting contracted out instead of hiring the people that we need to run this city? Because it'll help our economy if we hire them, because that means the people stays here. A lot of contractors that we hire are out of this city. They don't even live here, so they're taking that money somewhere else. So that would help this city a great deal. And this has been bothering me, as y'all can tell. But, I'm just saying, we have good quality people work for this city. And then so you're putting another burden on us now by raising our stormwater fee when our insurance went up. So that took that little raise, that 2.5, that's gonna take that. So, you know, help us out for a chance. Let's don't raise these stormwater fees. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak?
Rick Carpenter, 1548 Concord Road. Good evening.
What district, sir?
District 7, right? 4? I'm all over the place. I'm all over Chattanooga. Get around and see a lot of overflowing sewers all over the place, stormwater going everywhere. We need this. Yeah, we're going to have to spend more. We've heard a lot this evening. Something I haven't heard raised is theft of service, because we've gotten to this point and we've spent all this money, and yet we haven't got anything for it. We're still in the same boat, the same sinking boat with holes in it. And so we're at this point, this council's facing raising these stormwater fees, and there's going to have to be a lot of accountability here, because people are asking questions. They want to know what has happened, because we didn't get really what we were looking to get after all this money that we've spent. And now to stand before your community and say we're going to have to raise these stormwater fees is tough. I understand that, and it's not a good position to be in. And I, for one, would like some answers as to where the money go to, because it's going to be tough on everybody. I've got a little boy out there who's come to all these meetings. He may be sitting up there one day, and he's going to know where everything went and who is to blame. Because when we take money for stormwater fees and we spend them to fix potholes, to have impervious surfaces or pretty bricks instead of asphalt or something like that that's way above board, then we're going to get this kind of result. No bang for the buck. And it's high time that we started going forth and doing things the right way and making sure that the money gets spent locally instead of outsourced to some company in another state, and then that money goes out of the country and into some foreign bank. So we've been following the money. Some of us know where it's been spent. A lot of us don't. And for the ones that do know where it's been spent, we're going to be talking with everybody very soon about exactly what you've plans to do with this new money are. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak? Are we done here? Has everyone said what they need to say? This is going to be, no, ma'am, you're still, I wouldn't forget you. Yeah. No, you're cool. All right. Water quality. Is there anyone else before I close these hearings? Then thank you very, very much for your input. Your comments were interesting. We were all taking notes, and we appreciate your input. The hearing is now closed. Councilman?
Madam Clerk, would you read ordinances on final reading 5A, please?
An ordinance providing for an interim budget and appropriating funds for the usual and ordinary expenses of the city government for July 1 through July 5, 2018, pending the adoption of the 2018-2019 annual budget.
Council, what's your pleasure? All in favor? Opposed? Did you? Okay. Okay, let's do a roll call on this.
Burrs,
Yes.
Byrd. Mr. Byrd,
Anthony?
okay. Henderson. Ledford. Mitchell.
Yes.
Oglesby.
Yes.
Okay, that was all yeses. That was all yeses.
Great. Okay, let's now move on to 5B, please.
An ordinance to amend Chattanooga City Code, Part 2, Chapter 38, zoning ordinance, so as to amend Condition 2.1 of specific conditions for R4 zoning ordinance number 12809, or previous case number 2014-008, on part of property located at 6100 Highway 153, more particularly described herein, subject to certain conditions.
John, would you like to say something?
Yeah, I've got to enter for the just enter for the record. This is the site plan that'll be attached to the ordinance that you're voting on for final reading.
Okay, thank you. Is the applicant here? Yeah. Is there any opposition? Councilman Ledford. Oh. Okay, did you want to speak? Your light, okay. Okay, light. Okay, did you want to say something? Oh, okay. Oh, sure don't. Okay, Councilman Henderson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On these next few items that have to do with Hillocks Farms, the applicant is not here, but neither is any opposition, so we can just roll with them if you want to. I want to move for approval with the submitted master site plan to this property.
Okay, it's been moved and properly second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Item C, please.
An ordinance to amend Chattanooga City Code, Part 2, Chapter 38, zoning ordinance, so as to rezone property located at 6048 Highway 153, more particularly described herein, from R1 residential zone to C2 convenience commercial zone.
Councilman Henderson.
Move for approval.
It's been moved and properly second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Item number D, please.
An ordinance to amend Chattanooga City Code, Part 2, Chapter 38, zoning ordinance, so as to rezone property located at 6046 Highway 153, more particularly described herein, from R1 residential zone to C2 convenience commercial zone.
Councilman Henderson.
Move for approval.
It's been moved and properly second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Item number F, please.
No, E.
E, I'm sorry, item E.
An ordinance to amend Chattanooga City Code, Part 2, Chapter 38, zoning ordinance, so as to rezone property located at 6100 Highway 153, more particularly described herein, from C2 convenience commercial zone to R4 special zone, subject to certain conditions.
Councilman Henderson.
Move approval.
It's been moved and properly second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Item number F.
An ordinance to amend Chattanooga City Code, Part 2, Chapter 38, zoning ordinance, so as to rezone part of property located at 1100 Lupton Drive, more particularly described herein, from R1 residential zone and M1 manufacturing zone to R1 residential zone, R4 special zone, and UGC urban general commercial zone, subject to certain conditions.
Councilman Mitchell.
Move approval.
It's been moved and properly second. All in favor?
Aye.
Item G, please.
An ordinance to amend Chattanooga City Code, Part 2, Chapter 38, zoning ordinance, so as to rezone part of property located at 5513 Highway 153, more particularly described herein, from R3 residential zone to C2 convenience commercial zone.
Councilman Henderson.
This is in Councilman Smith's district. As far as I know, everything is good here. I move approval.
Okay, it's been moved and properly second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Item number H, please.
An ordinance to amend Chattanooga City Code, Part 2, Chapter 38 zoning ordinance, so as to rezone property located at 1649 Caven Road, more particularly described herein from R1 residential zone to A1 urban agricultural zone.
Councilman Ledford.
Mr. Chair, this is also Chairman Smith's district. I move for approval.
It's been moved and properly second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposers? So moved. Item number I, please.
An ordinance to amend Chattanooga City Code, Part 2, Chapter 38 zoning ordinance, so as to rezone property located at 7724 Standiford Gap Road, more particularly described herein from R1 residential zone to R4 special zone subject to certain conditions.
Councilman Ledford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. John, can I get the read on the conditions one more time? Sure.
Okay, the following conditions, office use and single-family detached residential only, except for the existing driveway and parking pad, no additional surface parking or paving shall be permitted between the structure and Standiford Gap Road. Signage restricted to one name plate, non-illuminated, attached to the building or projecting from the building, and not more than 1 square foot in area. Condition number 4 is no dumpster service for trash pickup, and number 5, use of existing structure only limited to 1 story.
Very good. Thank you for that. I move for approval, please.
It's been moved and properly second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposes? So moved. Item number J, please.
An ordinance to amend Chattanooga City Code, Part 2, Chapter 38 zoning ordinance, so as to rezone property located at 3951 Cromwell Road, more particularly described herein from O1 office zone to R1 residential zone.
Councilman Gilbert. It's been moved and properly second. All in favor? Aye. Opposes? So moved. Item number K, please.
An ordinance to amend Chattanooga City Code, Part 2, Chapter 38 zoning ordinance, so as to rezone property located at 2916 Silverdale Road, more particularly described herein from R1 residential zone to C2 convenience commercial zone, subject to certain conditions.
Councilman Gilbert. Okay. Okay. Councilwoman Burrs. Okay. It's been moved and properly second. All in favor? Aye. Opposes? So moved. Item number L, please.
An ordinance to amend Chattanooga City Code, Part 2, Chapter 38 zoning ordinance, so as to rezone property located at 432 West 24th Street, more particularly described herein from M1 manufacturing zone to UGC urban general commercial zone.
Councilman Ledford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is in your district. I move for approval.
Thank you. It's been moved and properly second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So ordered. Item number M, please.
An ordinance to amend Chattanooga City Code, Part 2, Chapter 38 zoning ordinance, Article 6, Section 38504, height and area exceptions and other special exceptions to clarify interior side setbacks for detached small storage building, private automobile storage garages, private shops for woodworking, metalworking, ceramic, etc., and other similar accessory buildings located in the RTZ residential townhouse zero lot line zone.
Councilman Ledford.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, thank the RPA for the hard work on this particular situation, and I think it's a welcome change. I move for approval.
It's been moved and properly second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. There are no ordinances on first reading, so we will move on to resolutions. 7A, please.
A resolution authorizing the Chief Information Officer to execute a blanket contract renewal with Tyler Technologies as the provider of hardware, software, implementation services, and related expenses for electronic citation system for the period of 1 year beginning July 21, 2018 through July 20, 2019 for an amount not to exceed $1.5 million per contract year.
What's your pleasure?
So moved.
It's been moved and properly second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Item number B, please.
A resolution to confirm the mayor's appointments of Roy Roth, Hannah Foreman, and Matt McDonald to the Chattanooga Historic Zoning Commission.
What's your pleasure? It's been moved and properly second. All in favor? Opposed? So ordered. Planning item D, please. C. What, C? I didn't get to C. Okay, let's back up to C, please.
A resolution to confirm the mayor's reappointments of Eddie Helton, Kenny Smith, Mike Webb, James Walker, Don Blankenship, and Robert Wade to the Construction Board of Adjustment and Appeals.
Council, what's your pleasure? It's been moved and properly second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Yeah, thank you. Okay, now, planning item D.
A resolution authorizing a special exceptions permit for a residential plan unit development on property located at 1100 Lupton Drive, subject to certain conditions.
Councilman Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. John, could you come up, please? Sure. The version that the Planning Commission sent to us had some conditions.
Yes.
Okay, could you start
Sure.
out by reading those?
Yeah, the two currently under consideration were provide access easements to Rivermont Park and the Riverwalk. And number two was subject to a street network plan as approved by the Chattanooga Department of Transportation. I think, and what we're trying to work through is the language for item number one.
Okay.
And you may give you a little bit of context on that one, if that's helpful.
Yeah, I'd like you to do that, and then I'm going to ask the
Sure.
applicants to come back.
And I think in response to that condition, we, the applicant requested some language changes to provide a little more flexibility in working out the location and design of that Riverwalk. And the suggested language, which I'm sure they'll speak more to in a minute, is to provide pedestrian easements to Rivermont Park and to Riverwalk at such reasonable locations as shall be determined by the developer owner to be built to standards determined by the developer owner. And that was emailed to us last week, and I appreciate the applicant forwarding it to us. And me going back and doing some homework, looking at, again, the Greenway plan and the Riverwalk plan, it was pretty clear that the desired location for that would be along the river. Also, I know that the applicant's been trying to meet with some other groups that have interest in Greenway extensions or you know, around that particular site. And they're working on setting up a meeting. I think there's some representatives here in the room that have been involved in getting that meeting together. So as staff, I guess just from our end, just, you know, we're still thinks that the original condition is appropriate if you're trying to focus on maintaining the Riverwalk along the river. That staff still will recommend that approach, at least until we get a meeting to meet with some of the other stakeholders. But we're still, at this point, in a position that the PC language should remain intact unless there's another meeting that could look at possibly changing that language.
Okay. I don't mean to run your meeting, Mr. Chair, but I was wondering if there were any questions of Mr. Bridger before we ask the applicant up.
It's perfectly all right, Councilman. Any questions of Mr. Bridger? Mr. Ledford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hey, John, give me a little bit more context into what the time frame is. I feel like that there's this magical river walk that we're suddenly tying a lot of development to, and I'm like, when is that coming? And
well, my understanding of the way that would have to work is based on past experience. Clearly, that would be, for the most part, I said that would be funded through a partnership between the city and the OSC in the past or other foundations to pay for the construction of that river walk along the river. I mean, that's typically, there have been some other models of folks who can speak more to how it's worked. That's my understanding. If somebody want to correct me, let me know. But typically that's the way it's done, is implemented through the city improvement. So the city would have an access easement, and then they would develop the design and pay for the construction of that extension in partnership with several entities. Sometimes it's been the federal government, sometimes it's been foundations and local resources. Now, I'm not aware of a specific time frame. Where's our budget, our capital budget guy? Justin? It's between Old Johnny Bridge and it's right between, if you know where the soccer fields are on one side. Yeah.
Probably Probably the easiest, I mean, as to how it's worked in the past, I hate to say this, but Councilman Mitchell may be our best expert on how to get it done, but we can get you a more concrete timeline. I don't think right now there's anything imminent, but there are definitely plans of expansion along that side of the river. So we'd have to get you more information.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Councilwoman Burrs, would you like to say something?
Yes. When all of this was conceived, the Riverwalk, the city, was there a published plan so that everyone would have notice?
Yeah, it goes back to the only two documents I'm aware of is the Tennessee River Park Master Plan, which goes all the way back to the late 80s. And then the other document more recently is the Chattanooga Greenways Plan, which is like a 5-year plan for Greenway extension. Those are the only two documents I'm aware of. Blythe, you aware of any others? Those are the two that I'm aware of that kind of show, again, basically it's a line, it shows it going along the river. That's what we have at this point.
So I was interested in the concept of notice. Like there was a plan that talked about all this.
Yeah, and I'm not aware as far as the specifics of what the notice. I was not directly involved in that, so I don't.
Well, if we have a published plan, then impliedly people have notice. I just wondered if there was some published plan that so folks would have notice, or was it vague or overbroad? I just haven't seen it, so I'm really asking.
Yeah, I mean, I wish I could tell you the specifics, but I was not involved in that project, so I would be speculating.
Okay.
Could I ask the applicant to come up now?
Absolutely. Applicant, would you please come up?
Hi, I'm Becky English, and I'm here to represent Riverton Development. You have questions, or you mean just to state my position?
Yeah, please. Yeah, I like
So, to give a little bit of history here, this project, as most of you know, that it's called the Blue Cross property. It's in Lupton City. It's got about 3,300 linear feet on the Tennessee River. And when we submitted for zoning, of course, we put together a plan. And the plan that we have in place, it's evolving, I will certainly say, as we meet more groups who show a lot of interest in what we're doing, which we're happy for. The plan's evolving. So we have not finalized exactly what we're doing. I can say, and this is what I had shared with Mr. Bridger and Mr. Bailey in an email last week, was when we looked at the language had basically had a capitalization of the Riverwalk, and it's not there now, and we don't know when it will be there. But our intent, as I shared with in that email to Mr. Bailey and Mr. Bridger, was that our intent is to connect. We want to connect to Rivermont Park. We do want to connect to a future Riverwalk, but the Riverwalk, if you want to use that terminology, that we want to do on our property is a development amenity that we do want to connect. So there would be access easement. This language that we proposed is basically explaining that because nothing exists now, we want to do a riverfront pedestrian corridor for our development, and with the materials and the design and the shape that we would like to do, and to have that connect in the future. No one can really tell us when the Riverwalk is coming. We've also met with other groups, and we've learned that because of the north side of the river doesn't have Riverwalk currently. I know there's a lot of people that want it to happen, as we think that would be great for the north side, but we know that there's a lot of obstacles to get there. But some of the groups that we met with, North Chick Creek Conservancy Group was one. My partner actually went to a meeting with Equinox, and I think that had something to do with the Great Eastern Trail. And so those conversations we have shared with all of those entities, we are more than happy to have those meetings and discuss connections. Our point is simply that no one really has a plan in place, so we anticipate multiple connections. One of the things that we were told is that a connection to Greenway Farms, for example, may be best along the railroad track, which is the north side of us, not the riverbank, and that might be the easiest way to connect to all these other trails. And so, you know, we said, well, we would be interested in making a connection on the north side of our property too. So we're not saying we don't want to do this. We're just saying it's our 3,300 linear feet. We would like to develop it in such a way that is to our standards and that we would connect. But we feel like that should be determined at locations that we determine, because there isn't a plan in place now.
Questions?
Councilwoman Burrs.
So, I guess this is an attorney question. If the city has a plan, and let me ask you this. Becky, does your land go all the way to the river? There's no right-of-way problem?
It goes all the way to the river. I was just thinking when you were talking about easements that when we purchased the property, we had a long list of easements, and there were no easements along the riverbank with the exception of sewer easements that we have. And we have been meeting with Public Works and different folks in the sewer department, some of which have left. But basically, we know that we do have some easements in some areas on the river bank side, and that would be sewer, but none other that I'm aware of.
Okay. So these are a couple of questions. When there is land that touches the river, is state-wise, is there any easement or something that's, what do you call it? A right-of-way, I guess.
I mean, right on the water?
Yeah, like.
I don't know the answer to that. I can find that out, but I don't know off the top of my head.
Okay. All right. And then the question, like the Corps of Engineers usually would have some, I know we went through this before, and, well, that's all right. That's just something.
I think it would be ours if it is, and then I think TRWA takes it once it's in the middle, but I'll have to look at it.
All right. That's the first question. The second question is, at what point so could the city have a plan that includes a river walk without there being that right of way? That's my question. I know I'm getting legalistic.
I mean, the city could have a plan. I mean, I think the plan will contemplate, I think we did this with Riverwalk Extension just recently, working with the property owners to get certain access as well. But the plan could still be out there and published, that's what is contemplated.
All right.
Yeah.
Then if it's out there and published, it's one of two things. It's either we would like to work with other people to make it happen, a public-private partnership, or we have this right away and therefore this is what the plan is. And I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah.
Just curious.
Yeah. Councilman Ledford. Oh, you don't want it? Mitchell, Councilman Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Historically, the way this has worked is, and actually TPL did a lot of this work, you know, not only about river walks or greenways, but greenways also. A property owner would be approached about giving up an easement, where then some form of public-private partnership would begin to plan to build, whether it be Riverwalk, whether it be Greenway or anything like that. So that's historically the way it's worked in this community. So some entity would approach the owner of this property and say, we sure would like to come through here with a Riverwalk or a Greenway. Would you be interested in granting us an easement? Now, if the answer to that is possibly, was what it usually was, instead of no, not yes or no, it's possibly, and then the discussion would take place where it's going to be located. And that is done in cooperation with planning. So, but I'm not aware of anything unless, as you say, there was a city easement, which there are some city easements, sewer easements on the property, where the city ever came in and said, we're going to do it here. It was always the private property owner saying, I'll let you do it here. And that's the way historically it's worked.
I still would like you to take a look at that.
I'd just like to know if anybody else has anything to say. There are some, I believe there's somebody from TPL in the room that's got some historical background. There's, folks.
Can I make one other point?
Yes, sure.
So the 3,300 linear feet along the Tennessee River, there are two areas that there's an inlet, so to speak. One that goes in and stops, it's just drainage. The other actually goes down pretty deep, and we would have to actually install a bridge. So there is a section of the property that is quite steep as you get closer to the bridge, the C.B. Robinson Bridge. And we are unsure, actually, how that terrain would go. I guess our point was, as we develop our plan and we look at and work with our engineers and we look at the topography, the LIDAR, all of those things that we have to look at to determine what's the most feasible place to put this, we want to be able to go through that process and to go through it kind of free of having to get multiple entities' input to slow the process down. And I'll also say that there's these two inlets where it seems already in what we've done that this, I call it a pedestrian corridor because I don't want to confuse people. It's not the river walk, but it is our river walk that would have to actually go up into the neighborhood in at least two locations. It cannot be that close to the riverbank, and that's because of the topography that exists and what we're dealing with that nature gave us. And so that's another reason why we want to be able to do this. Obviously, we think the connection is great. We're for the connection, but it's like Councilman Mitchell said, it's working with us versus more of a dictating this is how it's going to be. And that's what we're here for. We want to work on it together, but a little less restrictive with calling it something that I would say is almost a defined term, the river walk.
Mr. Attorney, I think you've been furnished with a copy of what they've requested. And I guess, Becky, my question to you is not where, but is the Riverton Group willing to be a part of that process of figuring out the connectivity?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we have a plan that we've been developing, and we think that that's the right plan. But I'm not sure if there's any other, I guess, of the many different groups that they're actually going to connect there. If the Riverwalk connects, that's great. But there's also other entities that expressed interest and connections on the north side and even on the south side along Rivermont Park. So there's a lot of work to be done. We're standing here asking for a PUD resolution and our zoning to be done so we can move forward. I'm not sure how long those conversations will take. That's a bit of a concern to us because we have met over the last couple of months. I know in February there was a meeting with the Equinox Group, and I know that there was, we met with North Chick Creek Conservancy Group, some of those members, about 2 months ago, and that meeting was, we need to talk to TPL about the land that they wanted to acquire to connect to Greenway Farms. And we said, keep us informed, we'd love to be at those meetings and coordinate with you all. So the answer is absolutely yes. We are happy to coordinate with groups and be a willing participant. It's just this language seemed a little heavy-handed considering how it was worded.
Okay, so Mr. Attorney, the way the alternative number one that you see is worded, is that for specific protection for the owner as well as specific enough in an effort to make sure that a community vision can take place?
Under the one currently or the one that's proposed?
The one that's proposed.
I don't know if it's specific enough to give community. It definitely protects the owner in terms of your first question. I don't know if it's specific enough around the issue of having or working or cooperating with the community, if that's the second part of your question.
Okay, yeah, that's it. Okay, so what we'd find ourselves in with this amendment to the conditions would be basically what we found ourselves in for the last 30 years building the Riverwalk.
Yes.
Dealing with private property owners.
Yes.
I'm going to make a motion to amend. And I guess we'll follow this language: provide pedestrian easements to Rivermont Park and to the Riverwalk at such reasonable locations as shall be determined by developer owner to be built to standards determined by developer owner. And I'd like to make a motion to amend the resolution.
Okay.
So first we have to first you want to put it on the floor,
Yeah, so
a motion to approve, and then we'll.
Oh, yes, okay,
Yeah.
sorry, I make a motion to approve.
Okay, there's been a motion to approve. It's been properly second. All in favor? Wait, the amendment.
Now we'll make a motion to amend.
Exactly.
Well, we don't have, I mean, we can do that. I'd just like to get the motions out of the way, and if TPL wants to speak, they can speak.
Okay, Councilman Henderson.
Thank you, Councilman. Now that motion's on the floor, I guess my question is, and I was thinking I was going to ask about a deferral for 1 week to see. I mean, but what I'm hearing you say is that we've worked on the language apparently, and we can't seem to get it where it needs to be, that where all parties are happy, or what's?
I guess what I'm saying is we're dealing with a private property owner here.
Right.
And in my mind, property rights overcome a plan that's been created, which is basically a wish and a hope. But we have been successful as a community creating or carrying out that plan and that hope, and I think we can be successful again with this private property owner. In this case, it did feel a little bit, I don't want to call it heavy-handed, but it felt a little bit like overreach to me.
So
not giving the property owner approval.
Yeah, so the amendment that you're about to make would give the property owner a little more flexibility in what they're wanting to do.
That's the intent. That's why I was asking the question. I think you answered it. It does protect the owner more.
Okay.
Is there a second to the amendment?
No.
You haven't made the amendment.
Yeah, he made, so we're waiting on a second on the amendment. Okay.
I'd like to yield to Councilperson Burr's wishes to, if someone else wants to get up and speak to it before we vote.
You need to approve amendment first. Original.
Okay. Can I get a motion?
You've already got a motion for the amendment.
Okay, we need a second. Okay, got it. Okay. 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 All in favor?
Aye.
On the amendment? Okay. Okay. It's been moved in, okay, anybody opposed? Okay. Okay.
Now I'll go back to the
Yeah,
motion
then go back to
for
the motion.
approval of as amended.
Okay. We have a motion. It's been properly second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So move.
Thank you all.
We'll see.
Okay, let's move on to E, please.
A resolution authorizing the administrator for the Department of Public Works to apply for and, if awarded, accept the U.S. Department of Energy's Advanced Solar Systems Integration Technologies Grant for municipal utility infrastructure continuation, music, in the amount of $1,950,000.
What's your pleasure? It's been moved and properly second. All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. F, please.
A resolution authorizing the renewal of contract number E16001-401 on-call blanket contracts for resident project representative services, RPR, for year 3 of 5 with 1 A. McFoster Wheeler Environment Infrastructure, Inc., 2 Arcadis US, Inc., 3 ASA Engineer and Consultants, Inc., 4 Barge Solutions, 5 City Technical Services, 6 CTI Engineers, Inc., 7 McGill Associates, PA, 8 S&ME, Inc., 9 Thompson Engineering, 10 Vaughn and Melton Consulting Engineers, Inc., and 11 Volkart, Inc., for year 3 of 5-year term with an 11 professional firm estimated at $1,250,000 total annually for all 11 professional firms for use by all departments.
Council, what's your pleasure? It's been moved and properly second. All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Now let's move on to purchases. What? Yeah.
Good evening.
Good evening, Bonnie.
The first 4 purchases we have for your consideration tonight are on behalf of Public Works. The first being a blanket contract renewal for tires to be awarded to Best One Tire in an estimated annual amount of $600,000. Next, a new blanket contract for turf management for parks to be awarded to True Green Lawn Care Service in an estimated annual amount of $50,000. Next, a new blanket contract for janitorial services to be awarded to Metro Janitorial Services, Inc., an estimated annual amount of $31,000. Next, a blanket contract renewal for equipment maintenance and repair services to be awarded to Stowers Machinery Corporation, an estimated annual amount of $400,000. Next, on behalf of Human Resources Department, we have a new blanket contract for stop-loss insurance to be awarded to Blue Cross Blue Shield of Tennessee, an estimated annual amount of $423,027. And finally, on behalf of the Information Technology Department, we have a new blanket contract for Facility Security Equipment Systems and Services to be awarded to Convergent Technologies in an estimated annual amount of $500,000.
It's been moved and properly second. All in favor? Opposed? Thank you, Bonnie.
Thank you.
At this time, is there any other business? Okay, I do have something that was submitted, then we'll get to your info stuff. Tomorrow night, Wednesday, June 20th, the Friends of the Chattanooga Public Library is hosting the first Books with Burke event at the Downtown Public Library. Austin Kleon, who wrote Still Like an Artist, will be at the library for a conversation with Mayor Burke and Library Director Corrine Hill about this book and how he can find inspiration and creative ideas everywhere. The event is from 6 to 7:30, and all is asked to attend, and there will be an opportunity to speak with Austin and get your book signed by him. Mr. Attorney?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There are actually 2 items. One is renewal certification for grocery stores, and then another item I have to handle from a June 5th agenda. First, just for the record, we want to put in the names of those submitting applications for approval of renewal certification for wines and to sell wine in grocery stores. First is Whole Food Market Group. It's located at 301 Manufacturers Road in District 1. I asked Councilman Henderson if he could sign that first. Next is Earth Fair, located at 1814 Gun Barrel Road, Suite 100 in District 4. Earth Fair, address is 5415 Hickson Pike, and that's in District 3. And then the Fresh Market at 2288 Gun Barrel Road, located in District 4. I'll circulate these for signatures to the members of the council. The second item I wanted to raise to the members of the council, and in your June 5th agenda, under Resolution Section 7B, there was an item submitted by ECD. The item actually read that is for HUD funding for fiscal year 2013 through 2019. That, of course, was a typographical error, and it should have read 2018 to 2019. No action really needs to take place, but for HUD, they want to make sure that the correction or the was addressed at least on the record, and so I think we've accomplished that by putting it on the minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Attorney. Committee reports. Councilman Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Next Tuesday, we will have a Public Works and Transportation Committee report after agenda session.
Thank you. Councilman Ledford.
No report.
Councilman Henderson. Councilman Gilbert. Byrd. Councilman Byrd. Councilman Byrd.
Well, today we had budget education session number 5, and our sessions will continue next week at 10 o'clock on Tuesday morning. And tonight, as you know, Mr. Chair, we had the water quality rate hearing. That's all my report, sir.
Thank you. Now we have recognition from person wishing to address the council on non-agenda item. What we've all been waiting for. Would you please make sure you read the rules to this young lady?
Yes, Mr. Chair, we'd love to. Anyone interested in addressing the council will only be recognized at the microphone. Ma'am, you have at least 5 minutes, unless the council provides for additional time. You can only address the council on items that are within its jurisdiction. You cannot personally attack or personally denigrate others. You can't use any vulgar or obscene language. And the chair is prohibited from recognizing persons more than twice on non-agenda items during a 30-day period. There are 3 folks we have on that list, Christopher Dahl, Rick Carpenter, and Ronnie Ray. Thank you.
I'm not sure I understood everything you said, but I'll try to obey. Okay.
Yeah.
My name is Bonnie Robbins.
Could you put your microphone down?
Yeah.
Okay. My name is Bonnie Robbins. I live at 2108 Old Ringgold Road, and we've been living there since my husband bought the house in 1959, and we got married in 62, so we've been there for several years. There has been an ongoing water problem that comes off of Crest Road. It starts at Crest Road, and it is directed onto our property, and it has gorged out a large area up there. And last year, in July, there was trees that fell, and almost really, the neighbors they had just gotten out of their cars and gone into the house, and the trees fell. But also, the water is directed onto our property from Crest Road. It's not a natural flow, it is directed. There's drain across the road that comes under Crest, and et cetera. Then it comes on down through our property, and then Sunset Terrace. At the bottom of that property there is a drain right there at Sunset Terrace. And then that water drains under Sunset Terrace, comes on down our property, which is the lower property, and then it goes all the way down the lot, and it comes out on Old Ringgold Road. There's a drain there that it runs out of when it's flowing like it's supposed to be. Right now we have a blockage, and we have a 6-foot deep hole, and that came up the end of May. But prior to that, we had a sunken area right before that, which was a hole at one time, and my husband and I tried to take care of it a few years ago, and the fix was only temporary, and the land has sunken again, and I know there's loose earth underneath that, which could be a hole underneath that. So I had called the city and requested that they please help us out with this problem. Back in the 70s, we had the same thing to happen on the property right below where the sunken places are now. And the city came out and they did install some new drain and fix it at that time. But now I am told that the city cannot be responsible for anything on private property that, you know, we've got to take care of it. It's our responsibility. Well, this is an expensive project, and this is no fault of ours. This water has been draining off of Crest Road for years, and it is gorged. The lot in back of us is just a no structures on it, but it knocked down several trees, but it's still, you know, a lot of trees up at the top part of it, and it's just made a gully, just a gorge right down through there, and then, as I say, it comes on down into our property, and really something needs to be done so that this will not happen any longer. I don't know if they can do anything on Crest Road to direct that water. I'm not an engineer, but something needs to be done. And if they can't do it there, and they want to continue to put it down that property that I just, you know, from Crest down to Sunset Terrace, if they want to keep draining it down through there, it would be good if they could enclose it in some kind of, you know, enclosure, but mainly where it comes down there and runs under Sunset Terrace on down into our lower property. If there's some way that they could, instead of putting that drain down to our lower property, maybe put it down Sunset Terrace and drain it that way instead of coming through that lower property. But we need somebody to help us get these holes fixed right now and this sunken, because I'm sure that there's holes that can come in other parts of the yard. I'm sure that they are. But anyway, we need the city's help on this. We really do need the help on this. And we would appreciate so much if you all would please consider you know, lending a hand on this, anything that you can do. Of course, if we need to share the expense some way, but somebody, if they would just look at it and help us and tell us how to solve this, and also just solve it once and for all, so we don't, as I said, it happened back in the 70s, now it's happening again, but actually it happened a few years ago, and we just been kind of letting it, you know, mill alone and staying away from the area. Don't walk on it, don't try to garden there or, you know, anything. But then this hole appeared at the end of May, it's 6 feet deep, and I'm not sure, about 34, 35 inches across. And we can't even go around there now. Our water hydrant, water faucet's there, we can't even connect it up a hose. But we just need help with this, and really appreciate you guys, you know, giving it consideration and letting us, you know if you can do something for us. Thank you very much, appreciate your time.
Maura, you think after this we can connect with this young lady and see what we can do to help? Yes, so. Sure. Well, I can tell you that we had crew there yesterday. Oh. I happened to see them out. So.
Oh, you did?
I did.
Oh, you did? Oh, my goodness, thank you. Thank you so much. I am so pleased to hear that. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Ma'am, sometimes the city do work quick. It may not be much in the eyes of the public, but we try.
This has been worrying me so much. It's just stressing me emotionally, physically, and thinking about the financial part too. And so I just thank you. Just thank you so much.
Well, ma'am, you get you a good night's rest tonight, okay? And we'll all feel better in the morning, okay? Thank you. And thank you, Maura.
Good evening. My name is Shirley Moon. I live in the Ridgedale resident in the Neighborhood Association. And I want to thank you all for giving me this opportunity to present this letter to you all. There's quite a few issues go on in my neighborhood, and I'm not well at expressing myself in a public forum, and I do have a letter to let you all know what's going on, so I would like to present it to you all tonight. And you can call me, and we can make a connection in the future about this. So who do I present this to?
Just give them to me, ma'am, and I'll pass them around.
Now, thank you for the time.
Thank you, ma'am.
Good evening. My name is Susan Bureau. I'm in District 1. I spoke with Mr. Henderson this week. My problem has to do with the Chattanooga overlay and the short-term Airbnb. So my understanding of the overlay was more that it was to keep the business downtown and to keep historical buildings. That's the way I read it. But it affects my property not being in this overlay because I'm unable to rent Airbnb. So I pay city and county taxes. Even though I'm annexed in, I live in Hickson. I rent a rear bedroom that has its own entrance, its own parking spot. I live on a street that only has 5 houses, no crime, no incident since I've been doing it. The income has provided me and my husband, who are both on Social Security, a whole new way of living that we never thought we could get. This is our retirement, this Airbnb. And now it's been shut down because of the overlay. So what I'm really asking for is that this overlay be reviewed, revoted on, extended, abolished, somehow. The people that come to my Airbnb, they spend money here. They get gas here, they rent cars here, they get entertainment here. Also, because of the income that I'm able to get from my Airbnb, I also can spend more money locally. The only thing I can really say is I need the overlay issue brought up for vote again. That's my main thing here. Thank you, and shall I leave this with you?
Mm-hmm. Thank you, ma'am. Is there anyone else who would like to speak to the council tonight on non-agenda items? It's your pleasure.
Move we adjourn.
Okay. We are adjourned.